there, good morning. I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foote Title Group, and welcome to Coffee with Connie. Thank you so much for taking your time to tune in this morning. Hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your week. I know it's Tuesday. I know the weather is starting to break. Spring is finally starting to come alive, which is really exciting. And I feel bad for you allergy sufferers because good and gosh, I've just noticed recently, just within the past couple of days, all the pollen that's out there. So thank gosh I don't have that, but I know there's several of you that do. So good morning, and thanks so much for taking your time to tune in. Today I wanted to talk about something along a similar themes we've been talking about. What happens when the property you buy isn't what you thought it was when you actually, after you go to closing. And, you know, this goes to a lot of different things that we as a title company do. And so I wanted to talk about this, one, because as I say to you a lot of times, I really like it when you guys share with me experiences that you have or questions that you have, because those things are things that other people want to know as well. And so this is something that came up in our office recently, and so I'm going to explain the scenario a little bit to you, but I also want you to understand what happens, how it gets taken care of. So let's say that you are going to purchase a piece of property and you go to closing, and you thought, you know, you had a survey done and everything was drawn out, and you thought that what you were purchasing when you walked around the property with the seller or with your realtor, that was everything that you were buying. The shed that was on the property, the garage that was on the property, everything that you looked at, you understood to be exactly what you were buying. Hey there, Tammy, how are you today? Guy, thanks for tuning in. Good morning, Jason. How are you this morning? So you went through your walkthrough, you walked around with your realtor, you may have even walked around with the surveyor, and you looked at all of everything that was on that property, and you said, gosh, this is great, this is exactly what I want. I need a shed for my tractor, I need a fence because I have a dog, and I want this 2-car garage because, you know, I have a few toys. So all of those things you thought you were purchasing when you purchased that piece of property. And what happens after you go to closing? You purchase that piece of property and you find out your next door neighbor comes over and says, hey, why is your garage on my property? Or you start driving through the property because the driveway that you are driving on, you thought was part of the property that you were purchasing, and you thought it was your driveway. So what the heck could possibly be wrong, right? So you start driving down that driveway and someone stops you and says, what are you doing driving on my road? Or worse, they actually put up poles and a fence and a gate and say, sorry, you can't drive through there. And this goes directly to your home. So it doesn't make any sense, like why I can't get to my piece of property anymore. So all of these scenarios can come up after closing. And if you close through someone that properly did the protection for you, all of these pieces are going to be covered under your ownership insurance, which is called title insurance. So when you go to closing, the title company, you know, what you see is that they make everything look beautiful. They pull all of those pieces together. They make the closing happen at their office or somewhere you choose. You go sit at that closing table. You understand and go through all of the documentation. And then once everybody signs everything, voila, you get the keys and you have your new home, or your piece of property you're going to build your new home on, or your condominium that you purchased, or the townhome that you purchased. So whatever it is, that piece of real estate that you're purchasing, when you get done with that closing, to you that it's all taken care of, everything's done, and you own everything that's there. Let's say you bought a big piece of property that you can't see all the property. Well, you can, but I mean, when you drive up in the driveway, it's wooded, it's 20 acres. You walked what you thought to be the property lines. You understood where all of that is, and boom, you got those keys to that little log cabin, and you thought that was all yours. And all of a sudden, somebody takes a bulldozer and timbers like the back 10 acres of your property. And you think, what the heck are you doing? Why are you driving on my property? Why are you doing this? Why are you knocking all the trees down? Hey there, Alan, how are you? Good morning, Wendy. Thanks for tuning in. So that you actually reach out to that person, what in the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this to my property? And they say, well, this isn't your property. This is my property, and I just got it approved to be able to timber all of this property because we're going to put in a garden or we're going to put in a field for our cows. Well, how come Now, all of a sudden, you have what you thought, the keys to your beautiful new castle and this great piece of property, and now someone's knocking down all the trees on the back of your property. What do you do? So the reason I said this came up about something that we needed to talk about, hey Mariana, how are you this morning? Is because before closing, a lot of times we do a lot of investigation to try to make sure that this never happens to you. So when I say investigation, of course we do a title search, and everybody assumes when we do that search that everything that we find is all resolved and all taken care of, and not all, just like any other type of industry, not all title companies are created equal. But also, a lot of times you'll see that a title company may have done everything that they could possibly do, and there was no way for them to determine that maybe something like this could happen. And that's why the insurance that you are given the option to purchase at closing is crucial, because these are things that you don't necessarily know could happen after closing. So let's talk about some of this for a minute. And the reason this came up is because we were working on a closing for someone, and when the survey was done, when the previous owner gave the potential new purchaser a copy of their survey, no new survey has been done, but when the owner, or seller in this case, good morning, my friend Pam, how are you this morning? Hey kids, how are you guys? Thank you for tuning in. It's good to see you guys all. So you got a survey from the seller before you went to closing that said, hey, I own, this piece of property, this is what it looks like. And in this particular case that we were talking about, it actually was a drawing of the whole property, which I can't remember the size. Let's say for argument's sake, it was 10 acres. And the seller actually had carved out a small piece where the home and the garage and the driveway was, that was 1.5 acres. And they were selling the home and the driveway and the garage and that 1.5 acres to a new purchaser. And they gave that new purchaser before closing a copy of that survey so the purchaser could see what they were purchasing. Hey Tracy, how are you this morning? So the purchaser said, well, great, this is exactly what I want. I don't need all that other property because this is a piece of property I am going to refinish, refurb, and I'm going to rent it out. So we don't need all of that upkeep. I don't need all that other property. And the seller says, no problem. All of the rest of that 10 acres is my remaining property. And so we're going to hold on to that. We're just going to sell you this acre with the home. So the seller was retaining 9 acres in this scenario. And so when we go to do the title search and we do the research, we didn't even get the opportunity to see that survey. We found that in the contract that they presented to us that they were going to be closing on, it said that they were buying a 1 acre piece of property and where it was located. Well, a red flag went up to us and said, well, wait a minute. The property that we've been able to search is 10 acres, not 1 acre. And so what has happened is the seller actually had a surveyor come out and draw that, and I'm not sure how that all came into play because I'm not a surveyor, but typically the surveyor will only draw what's legally subdivided in that community. And in the Maryland community where this property is located, the law says that it has to be subdivided in order for someone to be able to transfer it. And so the seller would have had to divide out that 1 acre piece, and they'd have had to go through some processes to do that, have a surveyor draw the bigger piece and divide where it is and record it in the land records. It had to be approved through the planning department. There's a lot of different steps that would have to happen. So in this case, that did not happen. And so technically, that seller cannot sell off just that 1 acre piece of property because legally it doesn't exist. And so this new buyer, when we're doing this research and we say, we found this to be 10 acres, he said, oh, no, look, I have this survey that the seller gave me and it shows it's only 1 acre and the house and the driveway and the garage is all there. And then it shows the other 9 remaining acres undeveloped. And we said, well, per the county records, this only shows as a 10 acre piece of property and you can't buy just the 1 acre piece because legally it doesn't exist. So now we've gotten something that we were able to catch before closing, but let's say it didn't happen that way. Let's say, for example, they didn't specifically define in the contract that it was a 10 acre piece. They just put where in the land records it was described, and it was somewhat unclear as to what exactly they thought they were purchasing. So when we actually did the closing, or the title company did that closing, and then the buyer, went to live in their house, refurbish it, and rent it out. Someone came knocking on the door and said, what the heck are you doing living here? That original seller said, you know, let's say that new owner built a barn out on the remaining 9 acres, and the seller came to him and said, wait, what are you doing? The 9 acres I didn't sell you, only the 1 acre. And the new buyer says, well, you know, as far as I can tell, I had purchased the whole thing. I know you had said something about 1 acre, but when I went to closing, they said, no, it was all of this property, and that's what I closed on. And so the title company never knew that they had been talking about 1 acre. The title company closed it and insured it. Now your title insurance comes into play, because that seller is going to sue you for their 9 acre piece back. And you, as the buyer of that 1 acre piece, now have something that you need to protect. And title insurance, I talk all the time about protecting your home ownership, and title insurance covers you for lots of different things that will protect the ownership of the piece of property you think you're purchasing. And it'll cover you against a lot of different things, but in this scenario, you would contact the title insurance company and their attorneys. You just hand it over to them. Here's a problem I'm having. Please help me figure this out. I need to protect myself and my home ownership. And their attorneys come in, start working on the issue, and make an agreement with the seller. In this case, they probably would agree with the seller to get that property subdivided, so the piece that you own, or that you think you own, that you will, because that was the intent all along. And so typically in those kind of scenarios, the title insurance company would come in and try to make some negotiations between the parties and get whatever steps needed to be taken care of resolved, so that everybody's happy and where they expect it to be. But these are some of the things that title insurance protects you on, and it happens all the time. As you can see in this scenario, or some of the examples I gave you at the beginning, what we can see and we make sure that you know about isn't always what you necessarily talked about with someone else that we may not know about. And so there may be something at play here that isn't properly recorded or isn't properly documented, and there's no way for us to be able to know about it to try to resolve it for you before closing, or to even talk to you about it before closing, to make sure that those kind of things don't arise. So that's why it's really, really important, number one, to choose the closing company that you're going to deal with, because you need to make sure that somebody that you're dealing with has track record and knows how to handle quirky things that come up. And also, number two, make sure that when someone says to you that that title insurance for the owner's protection is optional, that you protect your interest and you choose it. It's not cheap, but it's a one-time fee and there's no additional cost for it. So there's your little lesson on title insurance this morning, but particularly when something happens, then you purchased a piece of property and you don't necessarily own what you thought you purchased. This happens all the time. So we're talking about the side of the property where the fence is, or we're talking about where the driveway comes through, or we're talking about maybe the back acreage of that property that someone else actually owns, or we're talking about a right of way that somebody has to actually drive on your property. So there's all these different things that come into play, and that's the title company's job, not only to review that information and try to see those things and protect you, but also to make sure that you are insured so that your homeownership is protected for as long as you own that property. Hey there, Miss Karen. Good morning to you. How are you today? So hopefully that helped you guys a little bit understand a little bit more the word title insurance. I really didn't start out by saying I wanted to tell you what title insurance is, but I really, this scenario about someone else having some kind of an interest, and when I say interest, it could be all of these things we've talked about. You've got to protect yourself, and you've got to make sure that whatever you think you're purchasing, either you really do own, or that you have the protection to make sure that you get to keep it. So these are all really some very common things that happen that you need to make sure of. So as always, we like to be able to give you as much information as possible. I don't know all the answers all the time, although in this area I know a lot of the answers. But we like to answer those questions for you. So if you have a question about anything we talk about, either on this broadcast or many others, please reach out to me. Ask questions. Let me know if there's anything you don't understand. All of our team members in Maryland and Virginia are there to answer questions, help you out, make sure that you feel secure and that you're on the right path. And we love to help you out. One other thing I want to leave you with. You look ready for the day. Have a good one. Thank you so much, Pam. I am. It's going to be a great day. And on the heels of that, my word for 2017 is execute. So I hope you guys are watching all of our information that's coming out right now for the month of March, which ends this week. We have our online, our 73 Ways You Could Lose Your Home brochure, which ties very much into this broadcast. So go down and get on there and download it, get that information, get it for your buyers if you're a realtor, get it for your borrowers if you're a lender, get it for yourself if you're buying a home or selling a home. Because just because you've owned your home for 10 or 15 years doesn't mean that someone just doesn't realize that you're using a piece of the property that they think is theirs, and something could still happen. So great resource, good information for you to download. So go on our website and download it, or look for it on social media. It's all there for you. Hope you guys having a fantastic Tuesday. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. Hey, Ruth. And hey, Ruth again. Hey, Mark, how are you? I'm signing out for now. I'm Connie Foote with Foote Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. You guys have a fantastic day, and thanks so much for being on. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.